willpower. People often say that they don't have enough willpower, but actually the reality is that anybody who's ever dieted has amazing willpower, because you're going against what your subconscious wants you to do. And willpower only sits in the 10% of the brain where you're able to think. So if you think about it, to be able to diet when the 90% of your brain thinks something's going to hurt you and it needs to protect you, takes a heck of a lot of that 10%. And that's the problem. The problem is that you do only have 10%. And as you go through the day, it's like you have a bucket of willpower points. And you spend them as you go through the day. Which is why as you get to the end of the day, if you say, oh, at the end of the day I'll go to the gym, or at the end of the day I'll do this, you very often don't. And you say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then you go through the day, and at the end of the day you mean to do something, you mean to not drink the wine or not eat the snacks or whatever it is, but you find it harder to do stuff at the end of the day. That's because you've spent all your points. So what happens is you go through your day, you spend points. You spend willpower points to get stuff done. The harder it is for you to do something, the more you're going against your subconscious, the more points you're going to end up spending. So if I really loved going to the gym, it would cost me hardly any points. If I really hated going to the gym, it would probably cost me 2 or 3 times as many points. So you spend your points as you go through the day. And then overnight, when you sleep, your points get recharged, like plugging your phone in overnight. And if you don't sleep, for whatever reason, maybe you've got young kids or you've got a lot on your mind, then what happens is you don't get enough of the sleep that recharges your willpower point. So the next day, you can't think straight because you don't have enough of your thinking brain because it hasn't recharged. So on those days, you're far less likely to be able to resist those things or make choices that you want to make because you just don't have any points left to spend. So there are ways that we can increase the size of the buckets. So changing the way you spend your willpower points, we've done through this program. Changing the emotional meaning that food has, changing your self-image and the risk in it, means that your subconscious isn't working quite so hard to get in your way, which means you don't have to spend as many points. But you still have to spend the points. You still have to choose to do stuff that you want to do. So it is a lot easier if you've got more points to spend, and you can do that by increasing the size of the bucket. So there are a few things, and you'll see in the task a few things that are going to guide you towards tasks that will increase the size of your bucket. So basically, anytime you do anything to override your willpower or to exert willpower, you are strengthening the willpower muscle and therefore increasing the size of the bucket. And it doesn't have to be big grand gestures. So let's say it's chocolate that you're trying not to eat. Then you can say to yourself, I will eat chocolate, but I'll eat it in 15 minutes, as opposed to doing it straight away. You have now exerted willpower over something. And like going to the gym and lifting a weight, it is training your brain. So small steps every day, repeatedly, build up to greater strength. And eventually, maybe you'll put it off for half an hour, and eventually maybe you'll forget it. Or maybe you'll have a piece of the chocolate, but you'll leave the rest in the kitchen, and you'll go back and get the rest. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. You're just making small steps. And it helps to have a goal in mind. Not the sort of goal that you can fail at, though. When we set goals, we set these big grand gestures. I'm going to stop eating chocolate. Well, really? Does the 20-year time version of you likely to never eat chocolate? So rather than saying never, say reduce. So I'm going to cut down on how much chocolate I eat. I'm going to have less. And it doesn't really matter how much less. But any amount is you exerting control of something that would normally be out of control. So you'll see in your tasks that you can do to increase the bucket, to give you 1 willpower point. And what will happen is, as you go through your day, it'll get a lot easier to make the choices you want to make. As your subconscious is increasingly out of the way, and your willpower bucket is bigger, things become a lot easier. And you might even find you get things done that you've been putting off for a long time. I know a lot of people, when they listen to the willpower download, find themselves unpacking boxes from house moves 10 years ago, or sorting out books, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. And that's okay. It's just a sign of change. So enjoy the process.